Oh, that's a great observation. Why is it that so many of our common poultry birds, the birds we raise for food, why are they white plumaged? In other words, why do they have white feathers compared to their relatively dark, colorful wild relatives? And it turns out that the reason why so many poultry birds, whether they're turkeys, ducks, or chickens, are white is because of evolution. And it's a really interesting mechanism or type of evolution called selective breeding. So, whether it's in the wild or in the farmyard, evolution is all about survival and reproduction. And what's really interesting is in selective breeding, we, literally the farmer, the human, becomes the selective agent. They decide which of their flock or their herd survives and reproduces. So, why would a farmer want their turkeys or ducks or chickens to be white versus dark plumaged? And it turns out it has everything to do with how we, the consumers, perceive that bird when it's at the store. And in general, the cleaner meat looks at the store, the more likely people will buy it. Just makes sense. And one of the things that poultry farmers and the industry recognized a long time ago is the fact that the darker the plumage, the dirtier or less clean the carcass looks when it goes to market. And the reason for that are pin feathers. So pin feathers are tiny developing feathers that replace mature feathers that have fallen out, either via molting or a predator has pulled them out. They are notoriously difficult to pluck from a carcass, hence the pliers in this picture right here. So one of the things that farmers in the industry recognized was that birds with white pin feathers, in other words with white plumage, even when pin feathers were accidentally left on, which is inevitable because pin feathers are hard to get out, when white pin feathers were left on the carcass, it did not affect the sales or the likelihood that carcass would sell, that chicken, turkey, or duck would sell, versus birds with dark plumage and thus dark pin feathers would have all these little dark pin feathers sticking out, making the carcass look less clean and reducing the likelihood it would be bought. So you can see where I'm going with this. So obviously, once farmers recognized that light or white plumaged birds sell better than dark plumaged birds, they started selecting for white plumage in their own flocks. In other words, playing the selective agents, they decided, the farmer, which two individuals would mate and give rise to the next generation of their flock, or individuals, right? And they would choose the whitest plumaged birds. And over enough generations, you literally selectively breed out the dark plumage in favor of an all-white plumaged bird, and thus you have domestic flocks now that many of which are made up of nothing but white plumaged birds. Evolution.